Instant analysis. Welcome in CBS Sports MLB writer Matt Snyder. Another team on to the ALDS. Cleveland moving on, now Seattle moving on. And this was improbable when you consider where Seattle was in this game, down 8-1 at one point. This was in the fifth inning, and you're writing it off, and you're thinking Game 3 on Sunday, and we'll have to try to win it then. But these never-say-die Mariners rally, and then they are certainly fortuitous with the injury in center field.
Yeah, first off, we should be breaking down and analyzing who the Game 3 pitchers are going to be and what the bullpens are going to look like right now. That's the Blue Jays. They've got to get that done. If you have an 8-1 lead that late in the game, Gossman can't let those runners on base like that. Tim Meza in relief of him can't uncork a wild pitch, let in a run, then give up a home run to Carlos Santana. Jordan Romano got put in a sticky situation. The J.P. Crawford bloop was a little fluky. But, you know, you also have to give the Mariners credit for not packing it in and giving it up, because when you're down 8-1 and you're up 1-0 in the series, you've still got a chance Sunday. It would have been really easy for them to kind of pack it in and not worry about the rest of the game and look ahead to a Game 3 and kind of set themselves up. Instead, they just kept coming. They were relentless offensively. And once they tied it on that J.P. Crawford bloop there, I just kind of had the thought, like, man, there's no way they're going to lose this game. The Blue Jays felt like the air got sucked out of there. And now, in fairness to the Blue Jays, you would kind of feel like that. If you blew an 8-1 lead and then Springer went down like that and maybe Bichette's banged up a little bit, I think you'd be pretty down. So I don't blame them for feeling like all their energy got sucked away from them or anything like that. But man, the Mariners were just relentless all game. And what can you say about Cal Raleigh and his penchant for getting big hits? There with that big double with nobody on in the ninth, comes around to score the go-ahead run. He's becoming a thing, like somebody that you want up in a big spot, especially from the left side. He's a switch hitter, but most of his big hits have come from the left side, and he's got the nickname Big Dumper. He's becoming a big thing in Seattle right now.
I mean, one of the largest comebacks in playoff history as the Mariners rally from a 7-run deficit. I'm sitting here and I'm stunned because that just seems surreal how that played out, that they kept chipping away and then the injury that tied it up. But the fact that they just keep on coming, this never-say-die attitude, and this is really what has been the narrative for Seattle, right? They don't go away. We saw them walk off at the end of the regular season to clinch the postseason spot for the first time since 2001. They have a phenomenal start from Luis Castillo in Game 1. Robbie Ray gets rubbed off in Game 2. And then somehow they find a way to win. We're running out of things to say about this Seattle team. As outside of, look, if you have thought about Seattle not being like that tough of a team or that tough of an out in the postseason, hello, they could go to the World Series. Like, I don't even feel stupid saying that. I'm not sitting here saying, I don't feel dumb saying the Mariners could be in the World Series.
No, they absolutely could. And, if you see part of the formula we saw in Game 1 with how good Luis Castillo is, he'll be the ace. Robbie Ray had a bad outing today. He's inconsistent, but he's capable of throwing a gem. And then they've got a couple of youngsters after that. They have a bullpen that goes 4 or 5 deep in the late innings. One of those guys, Andres Munoz, we've seen both in Games 1 and Game 2 with just filthy stuff, throwing 103 with a 93-mile-per-hour slider. But other guys that we've seen in there, like Swanson and Penn Murphy and Paul Sewald, they've got the horses to do it and to shorten games up. And you saw once they started to chip away, the bullpen guys kind of took over there and shut things down to where it just felt like in those late innings, man, the Mariners are going to take this thing, and it'll take on a life of its own too. Because anytime they get behind now, they're going to face the Astros next, as you mentioned. Anytime they get behind, everybody in there is going to believe, hey, we're coming back. We're coming back. No worries. We're coming back on these guys. And the Astros starting pitching is a lot better than their bullpen. So maybe we'll see some Mariners comebacks here in the ALDS. Maybe they'll make a run.
The third team in MLB history to overcome a 7-run deficit in the postseason as they eliminate the Blue Jays. Look, preseason, I thought this Blue Jays team was going to go to the World Series. That's what my pick was. I had them representing the American League in the World Series. They have a young team. They have a really good team. And for this to happen to them, I mean, they're going to go into the postseason, and you know that they're going to go into the postseason thinking, I can't believe that happened. They will be coming back hungrier in 2023. But in terms of what the Blue Jays just went through, And of course, the injury, you hate to see that and the way that this game got tied up. But that's part of the game, as you and I both know it. And they certainly had their chances to win this game, building an 8-1 lead. But, like, what's the message for Toronto? Like, you know, they have John Snyder, who they made a managerial change. Like, what do you say to the Blue Jays at this point?
They need more organizational depth. The lower third of their lineup, and they have had injuries. Lourdes Gurriel's hurt, for example. But the lower third of their lineup, being Jansen, Merrifield, and Espinal did have 2 hits tonight. But still, when you're looking at getting somebody on base and trying to score a run there in the 9th, it just didn't seem that hopeful. You know, coming into the year, they were one of those teams that you thought maybe 1 through 9, they were going to be really, really dangerous. It didn't turn out to be that. They were more like 1 through 6 dangerous. So they need a little bit more depth in the lineup. They need to shore up the bullpen other than Romano, so they don't have to do things like throwing him into the middle of that fire and hoping to get 6 outs from him when he was going to have to come back in game 3 to win the series anyway. That was not an ideal situation, even if they won this game. So it just shoring up the depth in certain spots. And really, I guess you might look back at Snyder. He was the interim manager after they changed managers. And, they should have been better all year. And I know the AL East is tough, and they still won a lot of games. They still won 90-plus games, but they were the World Series favorite, at least on the American League side. The Dodgers obviously were in the majors, but on the American League side, they were the AL favorite coming into the season, and they had to play in the wild card series. They got beaten 2 games by a team that should have been inferior to them in the wild card series. They need to shore some things up there. And also, let's say, hopefully George Springer's okay. I don't know if he took a knock to the head or if it was his shoulder or if it was both. Truly one of the good guys in the game. Hopefully he's all right.
Yeah, going into the playoff series, their GM, Ross Atkins, said that John Snyder was a long-term fit. But does that sort of change based on this outcome of this series when you go, I mean, we had an 8-1 lead. Do you hang this game on John Snyder and say you're not going to come back as manager? Or do you say, hey, you know, you got us here. You righted the ship when we made a change and you know, you got us to the postseason. How do they handle this considering this outcome?
Well, we've seen crazier things before. I think they'll probably stick with them. But hey, like I said, almost anything should be on the table because this was supposed to be the year. This wasn't, let's say, a position that the Mariners were in this year or the Padres were in this year where it's like, hey, just get to the playoffs. Anything else is gravy. This is the start of something. No, this was supposed to be more of a breakthrough and go win the World Series year for the Blue Jays. If you look at the way that everything was lined up for them, and they were a disappointment for, you could probably say, a majority of the year. So everything should be on the table. I expect that they'll retain him. And more than anything, tonight I would look at your big money starting pitchers, Kevin Gausman, and he had an 8-1 lead, and he got in such trouble that they had to go to the bullpen earlier than they wanted to. That's kind of where it started. And then the underbelly of the bullpen with Meza blowing it and making it 8-5, not blowing the game, but letting it get closer to the point that, again, they were going to have to empty Romano's tank before a possible Game 3 if they even got there. You need more bullpen depth there, and you need Gausman to do his job better than that.
Yeah, there are a lot of vacancies in the American League in terms of managers. You got the White Sox, you got the Royals, you got the Rangers, and right now the Blue Jays because John Snyder's the interim manager. So if they make him a long-term decision, then they go forward with him. But there's a lot of openings right now around Major League Baseball. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of skippers or up-and-coming skippers. I mean, shoot, Carlos Beltran might get another shot after what went down of him not going to the Mets and all that scandal. Which brings us to this. Because he was part of the sign stealing scandal and all that. And, well, guess who the Mariners are going to play? The Astros. That's behind us. But what's not behind us is how much the Astros dominated the Mariners in the regular season. They won 12 of the 19 games. And, okay, so it was somewhat even, but it wasn't. How does that change in the postseason? I know you like to throw out the regular season record, but it felt like, especially during the regular season, we watched these teams like, remember they went into the All-Star break on a 14-game winning streak. They came out of the second half and they got swept by the Astros. Like, that's my lasting image of Astros Mariners this season.
Well, yeah, that's because the Astros are a better team. And, the more games you play, the more stock I would put it into. I would put a lot more in 12-7 versus if they only played 2 series against each other. It just shows the Astros were the better team, and there wasn't really much doubt about that. They won a ton more games in the regular season. They were the better team going into this one, too. But it's only a 5-game series. The Mariners have a lot of momentum right now. They're feeling good about themselves. The better team doesn't always win in series like this, and it doesn't take that far for us to go back to find cases like the 2019 Nationals, who beat the Dodgers, who were a much, much better team in 5 games. So, and the Nationals ended up actually beating those same Astros in 7 in the World Series. And I don't think many people would have said, top to bottom, the Nationals were a better team than those Astros teams. So if you're the Mariners, I think you go into it with the approach of everybody thinks they're going to beat us. We already advanced past this round. We're in great shape right now. We're feeling good about ourselves. Maybe our eyes were on next year anyway, but it's gravy right now and everybody believes we're going to lose. So let's go out and have fun and let's just play and let's see what happens. And if they come back home after a split or something, this will be the first time there's playoff games in Seattle since 2001. T-Mobile will be rocking, absolutely rocking.
Yeah.
And it looks like they might have just started a new trend tonight because apparently somebody in Seattle at the watch party put a shoe on their head right before the Mariners rallied to score 4, and then everybody around them started putting shoes on their head. So we might have a rally shoe being birthed in Seattle tonight. Something to watch for as we move forward, just from an entertainment standpoint.
Interesting. And that home game will come 1 week from tonight. Next Saturday, the Mariners will host their first playoff game since 2001 as they go on the road and win the first 2 games against the Blue Jays, and they eliminate Toronto up north of the border, and they move on to the ALDS. What a wild comeback for the Mariners. I'm happy for them.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What a club, what a season for them as they move on to face the Astros. That series beginning Tuesday in Houston. Matt Snyder here on CBS Sports HQ. Appreciate the conversation, Matt. All right, so here's the bracket. We're set. We are all set. 2-3 matchup, Yankees-Guardians, beginning on Tuesday in the Bronx. And now it's the Mariners and Astros, beginning Tuesday in Houston.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.